Happy Monday. Welcome back to Inside the Lines. I hope everyone had a great conference championship weekend. Jared Goff was not good to me. The Ravens were not good to Steven, but nonetheless, we come out alive. Bring in the boys to talk about this past weekend. Steven, honestly, you seem pretty optimistic about it.
Since the end of the college football season and fantasy football season, I have had more time in my hands, and I've been doubling down on my exercise. So I have all these endorphins like running through my brain, and I've become very mystical in my old age. And I'm like, we lost 11 years in a painful ACC championship game, 11 years after our first Super Bowl, and we won in New Orleans the following year with an inferior team. So that's the scenario I see happening now. So I feel like we've already won the Super Bowl next year.
Right. All right. Well, that's a good way to look at it. Speaking of the Super Bowl, what we want to go through today are some player prop lines that probably will be catching steam between now and the Super Bowl. A lot of line discrepancy through books. We'll go to OddsJam and look at those in case there's certain ones you like. And then, of course, we have a lot of NBA picks. We'll go through the slate again today. We're going to start with our player props. First, let's head over to the model, talk about what we see from the Super Bowl as a whole.
Yeah, we don't have any real value on the spread or money line, unfortunately. I know that's kind of boring. We lean ever so slightly towards San Francisco based on the metrics of San Francisco this year. But we know that the Chiefs are not about their metrics in the year. It's about how they step up in the critical situations. The model still has undervalue. It had undervalue in both San Francisco games. And against Green Bay, it hit. Obviously, against Detroit, it did not hit. But Kansas City's defense has played so well against Baltimore. So that combined with how San Francisco played most of the season defensively is why the model's leaning under. There's no real steam there. It's been 47.5 across the board with very little indication of significant movement there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not too much steam there. Definitely some steam on some player props, though. I saw Steven talking about Travis. Wow. Monday, Travis Kelce here and his receiving yard prop. So let's go over to OddsJam because I know we were on this too as an act now play. The line right now at 69.5. We make the number 77. This is one of those players that there's no way this starts to go under,
Yeah, I think that, you had a Ravens team that was geared to try to stop him. Unfortunately, they took the wrong strategy, which was to try to cover him like one-on-one, which didn't work. But yeah, I think that there's just no way that this line would ever be bet down. There's absolutely no reason why, from a statistical standpoint, modeling standpoint, smart money standpoint, or narrative between this. And then you add in the Swifties. So people who love the sport and bet it a ton, we're going to take the over, and the Swifties will take the over too. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I'm in the wrong screen.
I think that's anytime touchdown you're looking at there.
Yeah, I got it.
All right, yeah. I mean, there's no surprise there. He's somebody that will just start to inflate. Someone else that probably will just start to inflate is CMC here. His rushing and receiving yard line, 128.5 right now. Model, it does have a little value on the over, but in general, we're here to warn you. If you do like this is probably the lowest you're going to get.
Yeah. One thing about Kelce, you just saw the number bump up on Kelce's line, and the 69.5, which is available right now, was 68.5 a few hours ago. So it's already showing signs of moving up.
Especially with the juice at just minus 110 on FanDuel. I get that now because if anything, the juice would probably go up to minus 120, minus 130 before they move the line. So that's definitely an act now. And then with McCaffrey, his line started off at 123.5 rushing receiving yards last week, ended at 130.5. So there's no way this is going to steam
down. This is interesting. It's like, it actually has the range, the highest stayed at 130.5, but there is a 125.5 over that popped on the board. I think maybe Fanatics is trying to get some users to come in. They're a newer sports book, and you try to entice people, and even if it costs you a bet here, maybe get them in the door. So there could be some manipulation from the sports books trying to get first-time depositors to take a lot of action on players that they know.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of, let's stay with CMC here because this is interesting as well. Seems like a juicy line here, but relative, honestly, not terrible at FanDuel, minus 195 for anytime touchdown from Christian McCaffrey. This is likely going to go, closer to minus 300, 400?
Yeah, I mean, so this one, it just popped to minus 400 on Caesars. So when you see a disparity of minus one, again, Fanatics is giving sweet Christian McCaffrey prices. I think I haven't been directly involved in our discussions with that sportsbook, but I do feel like they're doing something to try to get people to get in
I mean,
there.
the range from minus 180 to minus 400, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. So don't be a sucker. Don't get minus 400.
Yeah.
Considering there's no underprice, right, on some of these books.
Yeah. All right, let's look at Isaiah Pacheco here. Go over to our other running back. We have some slight value on the over here, but I'm pretty sure there's a lot of ranging numbers.
Yeah, and since we met an hour and a half ago, the range was 3 yards. Now the range is 9 yards. Now the 74.5 high is with a minus 150 juice. So if you remove the juice, the true range is still a good 6 yards between 71.5, 65.5, and 71.5, and not too bad juice on either side, with even on juice on both sides. So that's an interesting opportunity. It's because in the carries department, we saw what happened with Pacheco yesterday against Baltimore, where he wasn't necessarily doing great yards per carry, but he had 24 carries. They stuck with the run. And the game script is if Kansas City does take a lead like they did against Baltimore, they'll stick with the run to try to, milk the clock. So this line was at 17.5 just around 30 minutes ago. So there might be opportunity. Right now we're projecting 17. I don't think these projected stats are going to change much between over the next 2 weeks. So what's going to change is the lines.
Yeah. So like I saw, his carries was 16.5 minus 108 on FanDuel, but it was at minus 140 in some other books. So that's one thing where I'd probably grab now. I'm not the best at middling, but if you're really good at getting in the middle, there's a lot of really good opportunities if you're one of those.
Yeah, you're very good at being average and mediocre, but middling is not your thing.
Thanks.
Hey, that's a big thing for me is like if you raise the floor, if the floor is high across the board, it's solid. I always tell my kids 100% of the easy stuff, 50% of the hard stuff you got to be.
Beautiful. Beautifully put. All right, let's look at a few other receivers. Let's look at MVS, who, to Steven's downfall, seems to be having some great games here.
Yeah, so I think that, people start watching highlights. MVS obviously has stepped up the last 2 games. The big thing for me is not only that he caught the ball, but the fact that Andy Reid Mahomes says he's going to catch the ball. That all the problems during the season didn't stop them from calling the gotta have it. The best thing that could happen to Baltimore at the end of the game was a deep ball to MVS that's dropped or not caught and stops the clock, saving us, the timeout. And when they just by calling that play shows the faith they have in the guy. So I think that play, so combined with the fact that, Rashee Rice hasn't been exploding, that MVS, and this is just one catch in the end with his high yards per. And Jake, you were talking about his actual reception line being funny.
Sorry, Jake, I muted you.
No. Yeah, his reception line is funny, and Juwan Jennings' reception line was funny too. So those are 2 players. It's similar to the Odell line last week, where their receptions and then their yards per reception don't line up to the odds. But I like Juwan Jennings a lot, over 1.5 receptions. Yes, he only had that 1 catch, but it was, like Steven said in our meeting earlier, it was a highlight reel catch. You can just be sitting it a lot. And there's a big discrepancy in his over 1.5 at like minus 105, and then over 1.5 at minus 150. So let's see, where's it? That's just his receiving lines. But he's one of these guys who just they call him third and Juwan. They look to him at third down.
And Purdy had a great game, but I don't know how much they'll want to try to go after those corners for Kansas City deep down the field.
Yeah.
So maybe they use Debo and Ayuk to kind of clear it out, and then open it up some underneath stuff.
I think maybe MVS and like you would take a prop at longest reception of the game. That could probably be a good prop there, just because he's not going to get that many targets, and when he does, it's probably going to be one bomb.
I like that. Let's talk about the quarterbacks. We haven't really addressed them yet here. We'll start with Patrick Mahomes. Again, another line, it's hard to believe, starts to go down. We do have, is this right? Do I have, let's see what we haven't projected for.
We're at like 261. We're like pretty much right in the middle of the range.
Okay.
So, I see the upper range is up to 262.5, which is where it was earlier this morning, but it looks like it's getting a little juiced heavier than that. And the low range is 256.5. So I just think that it's hard to fade Mahomes. Maybe there'll be interesting action first half, second half, based on what we saw last week against Baltimore. It's I don't think people should read too much into Mahomes' lack of overall production in the second half and the Chiefs in general. That's why, as much as I love the Ravens defense and Mike McDonald, I'm not giving them some great A graded for shutting out the Chiefs in the second half, because they got torched in the first 2.5 quarters, and the Chiefs didn't 1.5 quarters, and the Chiefs didn't need to put up major points. So I think that Mahomes is still Mahomes. I don't think he's going to be stopped if he needs to put up yards.
Right. Well, let's talk about some wait and see props that we don't necessarily need to act on now. Not necessarily going to be so much steam. You might be able to get value later. An interesting situation here with Rashee Rice, because we don't really know how he's going to end up playing, and there's a ton of discrepancy on this line as well.
Yeah, so he came under his number last week. So last week is also a weird line movement with him. It was at like 62.5, steamed down to 52.5, goes back up to roughly around 59.5 by game time. So there's confusion there. He's come under his number the last few weeks, but yesterday he had a 30-yard touchdown that should have counted, if not for a hold that didn't impact the play. So there's plenty of situations where you could have met, and he has also plenty of targets and catches. So there's many indications to say that, the last two lower yardage lines, he's kind of performed in positions and done enough that he could have easily hit the over. And vice versa. So there'll be plenty of people saying, well, he's not putting up the explosive numbers and they're falling in love with Kelsey. So, I can see narratives pushing it both ways. And so maybe what's going to happen is you will get potentially an interesting middling opportunity for Mr. Middle, Jacob Fettner.
Wow. That might be really advanced of us if we start middling here. I don't know if I'm ready for that, but
not right now, not the current moment, but I'm saying, let the story.
There's some guys who are really good on Twitter who I follow who are experts at middling. I mean, I don't have that much time on my hands. I do, but
definitely have the wrong.
Jacob's too busy determining the starting rotations for how many teams play college baseball, Jake?
Oh, there's 3,000 games from last year that we have data on that had betting lines. So I'm going through and putting all the rotations for last year so we get some accurate projections for this year. I'm just doing it for the people, Steven. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, no. Poor Big Cheesy missed a 10-teamer with Jared Goff not running at all. That may or may not be my fault, but you know what? I don't regret anything. Okay, let's move on away from that situation. One more wait and see that I want to talk about. Brock Purdy. Seems like there could probably see some inflation on this line. You might have a better chance getting the under closer to game time here.
Yeah, the line is way down from what it was, 280 versus Detroit, and that's because Detroit's pass defense was, statistically so much worse. And Purdy had 267, but let's face it, that 54-yarder to Ayuk, which thank God I had over 227.5 for his longest reception, was helped by the bounce off the defensive back's face. So I don't know how much that's going to count. And again, but at the same time, Purdy played really well, and especially with his legs. So I can see people not quite sure how to handle him in this situation, maybe leading some pretty fluctuating lines. Model likes under right now because of those corners in Kansas City and what they do against the pass defense. And unlike Baltimore, we do think that San Francisco will look to attack Kansas City on the ground.
Well, what's Purdy's interception line? Because I had that hit at plus 100 for me last week. That's something interesting because even though he doesn't throw a ton of interceptions, he throws a lot of balls that should be intercepted.
Yeah, interceptable balls. It's pretty much even on over under, and Chris Jones getting that big hand up or just putting pressure, tipping the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we would favor the over on at minus 110.
Yeah, so I'd probably lean there. I wish it was plus 100, but minus 110 is still pretty good value in my opinion.
Yeah.
All right, I see the chat starting to gear towards some, some NBA over here, which is interesting. But if you have any more NFL, we can definitely answer it in the chat. We're going to head over to this large NBA slate that we have today. We'll start with the Clippers headed to the Cavs. Clippers now 1.5 point favorites on the road here. We do like the Cavs in the spot, but we like Kawhi Leonard a lot.
Yeah, so we like Evan Mobley might return, and so that's one reason why we're including in the model, which is why Cleveland is favored. Taking Kawhi Leonard under 24.5 points, not because we think he's going to have a bad game, but Cleveland, except for one recent batter performance, has held 7 opponents to 102 or less. And Kawhi's been averaging 22 points his last 13 games. So it's a simple math that Kawhi will continue being that kind of scorer in a tough defensive matchup. The line is higher because Kawhi averages 25 on the road, which is 2.5 more than he does at home. Can't hear you, Kenzie.
You're muted.
Sorry, not to take steps backwards, but I wanted to answer this NFL question quick from earlier. Steven asking about Fred Warner, something we don't really talk about a lot, 8.5 tackles and assists. I've been seeing some people on the site do this a lot. Is that something we'd have projected at all?
Yeah, we do. I just don't have a nice big screen of it. So, but that is a good idea. We've been trying to see what kind of NFL content we can do, and we'll do an intensive deep dive into defensive individual player stats at some point in the next few days. So that's a great idea. Thank you very much. But we have them projected for 8.8 solo and assisted tackles, 5.3 solo, 2.5 assisted. I will again look for create better views for this.
Yeah, I know. That's a good thing. We have plenty of time until game time to get creative with some of the content we put out. So that's certainly a good idea there. All right, let's move over back to the NBA. Knicks headed to Charlotte, 9-point road favorites here. Going back to Villanova with Dante DiVincenzo. Yeah,
the Knicks, obviously Julius Randle is out, but, they've been playing really well. And I think Randle's good, but I think their defense can still step up against Charlotte, who's has 3 bad losses since their impressive win against Minnesota. They had 3 bad losses, including at Detroit. DiVincenzo, in the previous 2 years, when he was getting 26 minutes a game, was averaging 4.5 rebounds. And this year's overall minutes are down, so which is to 22 minutes, which is why his rebounding average is down. But I think in this situation, the whole team's going to have to make up for Randle's absence on the boards. I think Brunson will be busy shooting, so guys like DiVincenzo, Josh Hart will need to contribute on the boards. And I think that he's due for a good 26 plus minutes, which is his key to getting 4 rebounds.
Okay. Any thoughts here on LaMelo Ball and his 7.5 assists?
Let's see. We have LaMelo at 8.5 assists. So we like it. Nice. I mean, they traded Rozier, so he should have the ball in his hands even more. He hasn't been going crazy. He missed his last game, but that's all. He had 8 assists in 23 minutes two games ago.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's move over to a fun game here with the Suns headed to Miami. 2 plays we like here. A good value play, though, we like is Phoenix money line. What makes the model like Phoenix here, even though the Heat are favored 4 points?
Because Miami has lost 6 straight. And the Heat play bad defense at home. They allow 115 per game versus 108 on the road. And their offense is still figuring out how to integrate Terry Rozier. The bad thing about Kyle Lowry is that he wasn't much of an offensive threat and is an inconsistent shooter. But the good thing is you could just sit him when he wasn't hitting his threes. And then you had plenty of more shots for the guys that are younger and more consistent. With Rozier, you have a guy who wants to take his shots at the same time. Is there too many mouths to feed in the perimeter?
Jake, do you agree with this?
Yeah, I mean, they're both teams are honestly really struggling right now. If you consider Devin Booker has put up 150 points the last 3 games, and they're 1-2, there's a little something off there. Even though it's not his fault, because he's shooting 65% on a high volume, so he's not the problem, but. I think that Miami needs to go back to the basics. That's why I have Bam over 23.5 points and assists here. We have him projected for 25.7 in the Sims. They played a month ago in Phoenix, and Bam had 28 points, but just 1 assist. And I guess if Rozier is hitting his threes, hopefully they're on kickouts from Bam. But I think Miami just has to go back to the basics here and have Jimmy and Bam play their game. And if they do, I really like this, especially since Bam does have some good career statistics against Nurkic.
That's a good nugget there. All right, let's move over to the Pelicans headed to Boston. Boston 8.5-point favorites at home, fading Tatum here, and we like Valanciunas over 11.5.
Yeah, so the Pelicans are the Boston should be motivated to win after two kind of tough losses to top tier teams at home. New Orleans they get killed or they kill. I mean, some of their point differentials are crazy. So there is a game flow scenario where Boston just destroys them and Tatum sits. And he may have 37 points, rebounds, and assists in 3 quarters and not play the fourth quarter. There's a very good scenario that New Orleans comes out and is dominant defensively because they have a lot of good long wing defenders to make Tatum's life hard. So I just think there's a good 50% chance that this isn't a close game where Tatum's playing pretty well and plays 40 minutes, that it's going to be they slaughter New Orleans, fewer minutes. He has a tough game against New Orleans because New Orleans plays well. And either way, the scenarios come down. And then overall this year, the line is based on his last season average, which was 43 points, rebounds, and assists. This year, it's under 40.
All right. Well, it sounds like a win-win there. And then Jake, I know you have a prop on this. Going back to your guy here, I feel like this is a good prop for you.
Yeah, I mean, Valanciunas, if you look at his game log, he's hit this in 8 of his last 10 games, but then he had that rough patch. I think that this is a matchup opportunity for him against some smaller bigs in Kristaps and Al Horford, and Horford has been in and out of the lineup. So this is where it scares me that Boston could be up 20 and take Valanciunas out of the game completely. So I'm hoping that this hits early. Maybe I'd play like over 2.5 first quarter points here, because if he hits that, he probably hits this total. And he could be out of the rotation if they're down and they need all these guys to chuck up a bunch of threes. But I think he has hit this in his last couple of games against Porzingis when Porzingis was on Dallas.
Okay, good stuff there. Any thoughts here from Steven on CJ McCollum over 16.5 points?
Yeah, we have 17.3, so we like that. I almost went with that as my play.
It's good to know there. Sometimes the almost plays are the ones that end up working out.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's head over to the Jazz going to Brooklyn. We actually saw the swing. The Jazz, I believe, were road favorites. Now it's swung over to the Nets. We make it just about the same value of the game, but we're all over Colin Sexton here.
Yeah, I mean, he's been thriving as they try to feature him for potential trade bait. So the model has him at over 32.5 points, rebounds, and assists. His recent trend. So for the season, he only averages 23.3 on the road. But recent trends going back 15 games, he's had a 30 average and 34 of the last 6 games. So this is really just a bet on that they'll continue to feature him. And Utah's offense overall has, for the season, averages more than 10 points less on the road than at home. But recently they've exploded for 134, 123, 124, and 126. So this is just hopefully more of the same. And hopefully it's not like, hey, now we're going to feature Jordan Clarkson for the next 3 games, which hopefully won't happen.
Yeah, I played his over 5.5 assists at plus 110 on FanDuel. He's coming off a career high 13 assists in his last game. He's hit this number in 3 of his last 4 games. Both these teams, it should be a high scoring game. We have some overvalue here. And they're just really featuring him with more on ball opportunities. And over his last 5 games, he's averaging 12.5 assist opportunities per game. If you look at the first couple of months of the season, he was averaging well under 10. So his assist opportunities are definitely up. I don't know if it's trade bait. I don't know if they're just looking a lot better with him with more assist opportunities. But whatever they're doing, it's working when he has the ball in his hands.
Mm-hmm. Jared looks like he has an S-list character of his own here with CJ McCollum. We know this feeling all too well. So thoughts and prayers go out to you, Jared. For that.
Yeah, I was on him 2 games ago, and he had 13 points, and he needed over 15.5, and he did nothing. So He's kind of on my list as well.
All right, another one added. All right, let's keep ripping through these games. We'll go with the Wizards headed to the Spurs here. We kind of make this a close game here, but we're going to go with the prop instead, Steven.
Denny Avdia. The line's 12.5, but he's up to over 15 in his last 15 games. He's averaged 20.7 in his 3 games versus San Antonio. They don't defend the 3 well, and they don't defend much well.
Yeah. Sometimes it's that simple. That's all you need. Just fading the Spurs here. All right, let's move on here. Lakers going to Houston. Jake has a prop here with Fred VanVleet.
Yeah, this is more of a bounce back opportunity. I used Jam for this play over 2.5 3 points made. You get at -124 on Bet Rivers. A lot of books have this in the -130 range, so you're getting a value at Bet Rivers. We have it for 3.3. This is more about betting on a bounce back or a return to the mean here. He's shooting right around 10 per game over his last couple of games, and he's gone 2 for 10, 2 for 10, with like 3 for 8 one time, and then 1 for 9. So he's struggling, but he's back at home here. He averages 3-pointers per game at home. And with a bunch of Lakers questionable, maybe LeBron, maybe AD both don't play here. But it should be a close game. So I like the over 2.5.
Yeah, we do like
asking about the Houston money line here. As you can see, the model does like Houston as well. The Lakers coming off a double overtime game, I believe. So I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, that's why we like Houston here.
And Houston's metrics for the season, it hasn't been holding recently as much, the road home splits, but for the season at home, they've been dominant overall with a +6 point differential, 16-8, 15 against spread. Whereas the Lakers are terrible on the road, 7-15. So recent games aside, that's been the trend.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's head over here. The Timberwolves going to OKC. We do like OKC a lot in this spot, and we are going back to Lou Dort over 8.5 points. We got him at a low number here.
Yeah, so both teams have actually had some flops recently. Minnesota lost to San Antonio and Charlotte recently, and OKC just got killed by someone yesterday, last game. But this is actually the top 2 records in the West, tied. And Lou Dort's been terrible last 4 games, 25 minutes per game, 4.5 points per game. But if you go back to since last season, it was 57-17 over this number. And for the season, this season, he's averaging fewer points, but still 14-7 with a +2.2 more at home. I'm banking on him getting more minutes because they need his defense on Ants, because there's no one who can match Anthony Edwards' overall athleticism and strength. But Dort is probably the closest one to do that. And in games versus Minnesota, the over is 5-2 with a over 12.5 point average because he's played 30+ minutes in 5 of those 7 games.
Mm-hmm. Looks like Lou Dort is on Big Cheesy's list, so see if he ends up on ours. But we need to have a live chat list and then our list, and maybe we'll have a collab here. All right, let's move over to the Kings headed to Memphis here. We like the Kings on the road in this spot. Vince Williams we like here.
Yeah, Memphis. So he's, I had him last week and he was like -190 for over 1.5, and to see -140 was very exciting for me. He's now a featured perimeter scorer for Memphis. He's averaged 2.5 made threes in 33 minutes over his last 12 games, 11-1 over. Kings allow 39% 3-point shooting on the road. It's 2 percentage points higher than last season.
That's also my bad. I have the Grizzlies favored. That's a mistake. It's supposed to be the Kings on this graphic. That's on me, guys. Just to clarify.
Yeah. But if you can get get Kings +9, act now.
Yeah. All right. A question about Fox here. If we like him to go over 25.5 points.
Let me see. We have Fox at 25.5 points. I like it just because he's awesome. Good logic.
Yeah. Jake, you got any thoughts on this?
I'm just looking. He's averaging 26 over his last 5 games. Don't mind this play at all, especially if we have it right around there.
But Memphis has been playing better defensively, recently. So it's a little cause for concern.
And then what about Big Cheesy was asking about this earlier. That's my bad. Malik Monk over 21.5 PRA.
We only have 18 points, rebounds, and assists. I'm always get bothered by the rotation at that wing spot between Herter, Monk, Barnes, and it's really inconsistent. You never know. It seems like one of them's always featured, or 2 of them, and one's always the odd man out. Recently, it's been Monk who's been the odd man out.
Yeah, Monk's been the odd man out. Barnes is really shooting the ball well the last couple of games. but maybe this is the end that Monk keeps back up. But yeah, I would stay off of that until he gets on a roll again.
Okay. All right, well, let's move on to another game here. The Magic headed to Dallas. Dallas 4-point home favorites here. We like Derek Lively. We're back on the blocks.
Yeah, he doesn't get called for as many fouls at home. He averages 3 or 4 more minutes per game, but fewer personal fouls. His blocks actually more than double at home, 1.9 versus 0.9 on the road. Overs 10 and 7. Atlanta has a lot of tall players, tall, young, active players around the rim. Wendell Carter, Jonathan Isaac playing well. He'll probably get hurt soon, but he plays well before he gets hurt. The Wagners. I'm thinking that there could be a chance for him to get a block on from one of these players, try to put something back. And then you have guys like Fultz who can't shoot, so try to attack the rim more and opportunities to get some weak side blocks.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's move over to one more game we have some value on here. The Bucks headed to Denver. Denver 4-point home favorites. We definitely have some value there. Saw some questions in the chat about Jokic as well. So as you can see, pretty self-explanatory. The model does like Denver here in the spot, but if we could go look at Jokic quick in the that would be good.
Yeah, I'm not going to overthink this one because Denver, we project advantages across the board. You can get 3.5, so I would grab that because it's 4 pretty much everywhere else. But we're projecting just a slight edge in every key category: 2-point percentage, 3-point percentage, rebounding, turnovers, based on Denver being a stellar team at home. Jokic, we have over 49.5 points, rebounds, and assists. I think too much of Milwaukee had a blowout win against New Orleans, but they're kind of hit or miss too. They have a lot of double-digit wins, double-digit losses. Beating Detroit by 6 is not necessarily most impressive. You lose by 40, and then you win by 10. You lose by 12. So they don't have the consistency, especially on the road.
All right, that was a ton of information there. I see some more questions in the chat. One question we'll take quick. I know we're super over time, but I'm going to pull up the recap screen quick. This is the Act Now props. This is something good to screenshot, and the wait and see stuff. Again, not necessarily we're saying these are our official picks, but we know that the Steam is likely to start rolling in on these props, and this will probably be the best value you can get. Head over to the NBA recap screen as well. While I leave that up, a question for you two from Rebecca. This is a good question. Talking about Mahomes' rush attempts over 4.5. I know kneel downs count towards rushing yards. Does that count as an attempt as well?
Yep.
So
we have a 4.5 exactly. So I wouldn't get the over at -130 if it was -110 maybe.
A lot of places has the attempts at 5. I know Prize Picks has it at 5 because I was looking at that earlier.
Has it at 5?
I don't mind over 4.5 at -130. I know we don't have value on it. I don't mind that.
All right.
Mahomes for over, 130 is the best price you can get.
All right, well, that's good unique play there. Again, we'll start to come up with some more unique plays as well. Jake, I forgot really quick if you want to go through. I'll leave this recap screen up, but if you want to go through your college basketball player props here, we might as well.
Yeah, Bethune-Cookman -140 money line. They're 5-1 as home favorites this year. Alcorn State is playing better, but Bethune-Cookman is playing well, especially at home. They have one of their best players back in the lineup who's hurt, Zion Harmon. So I like that. Dylan Mitchell under 8.5. The last couple of games, he had 4 shot attempts, 6 shot attempts, and 4 shot attempts with Dylan Dessou back in the lineup. Especially against Houston, who's the best defensive team in the country. 8.5 is a little much. We have them projected for 7.4, so give me the under there.
All right, tons and tons of information from this show today. Went a little bit over, but a lot to unpack. Want to get those early NFL lines out. If you haven't hit the like button, please do that for us. That would be huge. Any questions throughout the week? Let's start to unpack it, start to brainstorm for the Super Bowl. Good luck with your bets tonight, and we'll be talking about it more tomorrow.